It's me, Chili, and welcome back to another reaction video. And today I'm going to be react to how it's made, how how M&M's chocolate yogurt and lollipops are made. And you're probably wondering why I'm doing a reaction to this. Well, it's because I couldn't really find anything to react to, so I just picked this because I couldn't really find anything else to react to, so I thought, why not? So maybe we'll learn some interesting facts. Who knows? Well, maybe we'll learn something interesting. So, but anyways, let's start the video.
Did you know M&Ms once stopped producing red candies entirely in the US? Not because they were dangerous, but because another red dye, called red dye number 2, was once found to cause cancer in lab rats during a 1976 study. The entire food industry was shaken. Consumers panicked. Even though M&Ms had never used that dye, they voluntarily pulled all red candies from their production line, just to avoid being misunderstood. And that was just the tip of the iceberg. Because this candy once caught in controversy actually came from the battlefield. In the late 1930s, Forrest Mars Sr., son of the founder of Mars, traveled to war-torn Spain. There, he saw soldiers eating chocolate pellets coated in sugar, which didn't melt under the sun. And in 1941, M&Ms officially launched, named after the two founders, Mars and Murray. The original goal? To supply chocolate to US soldiers on the battlefield. By the 1950s, M&Ms had become a national icon. And nearly a century later, no one has been able to replace it.
Build a website you love with Wix, where your words
Today, M&Ms are produced at a rate of 1 billion pieces per day, inside a factory where laser sensors scan every candy, and color ratios are calculated down to the percentage. So, what really happens inside the M&Ms factory? Let's uncover the 12-hour production process, where candies that look simple are crafted with engineering precision that's almost unbelievable. The process starts with 3 seemingly simple ingredients: milk, sugar, and cocoa powder. First, the raw materials are weighed precisely. 200 kilograms of granulated sugar, 100 kilograms of whole milk powder, and 75 kilograms of cocoa powder go into each batch. But once inside the factory, these aren't just ingredients. They become the very atoms of each perfect candy. The mixture goes into a 5-roll refiner, where massive steel rollers, each weighing hundreds of kilos, rotate non-stop, crushing and flattening the particles into an ultra-fine powder, almost as soft as talc. From here, the powder is transferred into special mixing vessels called conches, massive cylindrical tanks with a capacity of up to 3,000 liters. Inside, hundreds of stainless steel balls rotate and grind continuously, while internal paddles stir the mixture without pause. This motion generates frictional heat, raising the temperature to around 49 degrees Celsius, just enough to melt the cocoa butter without burning the mixture. The process lasts between 4 to 6 hours, allowing volatile acids and bitter compounds to evaporate, which mellows the flavor. At the same time, cocoa butter and chocolate liqueur are added, forming a semi-solid chocolate that's smooth, glossy, and evenly blended. This is the very soul of an M&M's candy. Once ready, the chocolate is pumped into small lentil-shaped molds, flat and round like a bean. This shape isn't random. It's mathematically optimized so the sugar coating can spread evenly without pooling or clumping. The molds rotate continuously to cool and solidify the chocolate, shaping each piece with extreme accuracy. Every candy is exactly 1.04 centimeters in diameter, weighs 0.91 grams, with virtually zero variation across millions of pieces. Once hardened, an automated system demolds each piece and sends them to the next phase, where M&Ms receive their iconic candy shell. If you've been a die-hard M&Ms fan since childhood, hit that like button. Now, the chocolate cores go into rotating tumblers. Inside, layers of sugar syrup are sprayed evenly as the machines spin. After each coat, warm air dries the layer, and the cycle repeats, adding the next one. This process runs silently, but with second-by-second precision. In total, each candy gets 6 to 7 ultra-thin layers of sugar. No layer too thick, no candy out of shape. Everything must meet near-perfect uniformity. After drying, the candies look like tiny white pellets. Now it's time for color. The candies are placed into large rotating drums called pan coaters, which spin at a constant speed to ensure even coverage. Measured amounts of colored sugar syrup are sprayed onto the moving candies in thin layers. Between each application, warm air circulates through the drum to evaporate excess moisture, helping the syrup crystallize into a thin, hard shell. This layering process is repeated up to 10 times, gradually building up the candy coating. Each layer is just a fraction of a millimeter thick, but collectively they form the hard, glass-like shell that M&Ms are known for. Once the coloring is complete, each candy is polished with a natural food-grade glaze, often derived from carnauba wax, which is sourced from the leaves of a Brazilian palm tree. The glaze is buffed into the shell using soft brushes inside the drum, giving the candies their signature glossy finish, smooth, non-sticky, and highly reflective. To make every piece not just tasty but recognizable, Mars developed a high-speed printing system. Each candy is stamped with the iconic white M, with near-laser precision. Each batch enters a coloring chamber where food-grade dyes are added in exact proportions. And no, the color distribution in each pack isn't random. In fact, every bag of M&Ms follows the same formula. "25% blue, 25% orange, and 12.5% each of red, yellow, green, and brown." A high-speed scanner checks each piece. Any that are off-color, misprinted, cracked, or deformed are instantly rejected. Only the most perfect candies make it to packaging. At this final stage, automated filling machines work at incredible speeds. Each machine fills, weighs, and seals up to 200 bags per minute. Advanced sensors ensure the correct number of candies is packed into each bag, down to the gram. Once sealed, the bags are laser-coated with batch numbers and expiration dates for full traceability. From here, the finished products are boxed and palletized, ready to head to supermarkets around the world, or in some cases to NASA, where M&Ms are regularly included in astronaut supply kits for space missions thanks to their long shelf life and zero-crumb design. Now let's go back to the core, chocolate. You might be shocked to learn that more than 1/4 of chocolate products on the market contain lead and cadmium levels exceeding safety limits. According to a test by Consumer Reports, lead and cadmium are heavy metals that can affect the nervous system, especially dangerous for children and pregnant women. And what's more concerning, many well-known brands weren't exempt from the list. To understand why, we need to go further back, to the origins of chocolate. Originally, chocolate wasn't sweet at all. The Maya and Aztec used cacao beans to make a kind of bitter water, strong, spicy, and reserved only for the elite. Later, when cacao reached Europe, sugar and milk were added, turning it into a popular dessert. From a ceremonial drink, chocolate became a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Do you want to learn some code for free? Then Code Institute's 5-day coding challenge is.
But behind that sweetness lies a long process. Let's explore how chocolate is made, to truly understand what's inside the bar you eat every day. Cacao pods don't fall from the tree like apples. When ripe, turning from green to yellow or red, they must be harvested by hand, one by one. Farmers use a curved knife, cacao harvesting knife, to cut close to the stem without damaging the flower cushion. If it's damaged, the tree won't bear fruit again. Once the pods are cut from the tree, farmers often gather them in piles near the field or along footpaths for easier collection. Next comes pod breaking, a crucial, labor-intensive step. Farmers use wooden clubs, machetes, or specially made tools to crack the pods open, taking care not to damage the beans inside. Each pod has a thick, woody shell, and inside is a mass of wet, sticky beans covered in white pulp. These beans, not the hard shell, are what eventually become chocolate. After harvesting, cacao pods only live for a few more days. If the beans aren't extracted in time, the pulp spoils and the entire batch is lost. Each cacao tree yields about 20 to 30 pods per year, and each pod contains about 30 to 50 beans. But to make just one 100-gram chocolate bar, you need around 40 cacao pods. This step is often overlooked, but it determines 60 to 80% of chocolate's final flavor. Fresh cacao beans, still covered in white pulp, are placed into wooden fermentation boxes or bamboo baskets covered with banana leaves. Fermentation isn't just about leaving the beans in a box. It's a controlled, hands-on process. Farmers monitor temperature, smell, and even sound. A faint crackling can indicate active fermentation. Local knowledge passed down through generations guides decisions on when to turn the beans or when a batch is ready. Over 5 to 7 days, yeast, lactic acid bacteria, and acetic acid bacteria consume the pulp, generating heat up to 50 degrees Celsius, killing the bean embryo and triggering biochemical reactions inside. By the end of fermentation, the beans turn from white to dark brown, become drier, and emit a light alcoholic scent, the foundation of chocolate's flavor. If you find the journey of a cacao bean more fascinating than you thought, don't forget to subscribe to Captain Discovery. There's still so much behind familiar foods that few people truly see. After fermentation, cacao beans contain about 60% moisture, far too much for storage. If not dried properly, they mold. And this is where toxins like ochratoxin A can form, a compound that may affect the liver and kidneys. The beans are sun-dried for 7 to 14 days on bamboo racks or mesh trays above the ground, turned regularly. The goal? Reduce moisture to just 6 to 7%. Some factories use forced hot air dryers when the weather is bad. This is also the stage where sorting happens. Defective, poorly fermented, or moldy beans are removed to avoid ruining the final batch. Roasting is when the real aroma starts to bloom. Beans are roasted in either rotating drum roasters or continuous roasters at 120 to 150 degrees Celsius for 20 to 30 minutes. Each producer has their own roasting formula, just like coffee. A change of a few degrees or minutes can alter the flavor. After roasting, the shell becomes brittle and easy to remove. The beans are cooled and passed through a winnower. They're lightly crushed, and a strong airflow blows away the shells, leaving behind cacao nibs, the core of flavor. At this point, the beans have been fermented, dried, roasted, and shelled, but they're not chocolate yet. To transform those seemingly lifeless nibs into smooth, fragrant bars, we need one last chain of processes, and it's the most complex: grinding, conching, and tempering. First, grinding. The nibs go into ball mills or granite stone grinders. Over many hours, the balls or rollers grind the nibs into a thick, smooth paste called chocolate liquor. Though there's no alcohol, this is pure, liquid cacao. At this point, other ingredients are added: sugar, milk powder, if making milk chocolate, lecithin, an emulsifier, and sometimes vanilla. Grinding continues until all particles are smaller than 20 microns, smaller than the human tongue can detect. The result? A superfine, glossy, aromatic mixture. Next comes conching, refining the flavor. The mixture enters a conche, where large paddles stir it continuously at 50 to 80 degrees Celsius for 12 to 72 hours. During this time, the chocolate breathes. Volatile compounds like acids and bitter notes evaporate. The motion and heat help evenly distribute cocoa butter, creating that smooth, velvety texture that defines premium chocolate. Then tempering, precision crystal control. Chocolate is heated, cooled, then reheated in a tightly controlled cycle, about 45 degrees Celsius, down to 27 degrees Celsius, up again to 31 to 32 degrees Celsius. Because this controls cocoa butter crystallization, only with the right crystal form will chocolate have a shiny finish, a clean snap, and stay solid at room temperature. Finally comes the molding and packaging stage.
Save time with the 3-2-1s of Xero by customizing invoices and getting paid. 3. Easily create your invoice.
After tempering, a controlled heating and cooling process that gives chocolate its smooth texture and glossy finish, the liquid chocolate is poured into molds. These can be classic bar shapes, round truffles, heart forms, or custom designs unique to each brand. The molds are placed on vibrating tables to remove air bubbles, ensuring the surface is smooth and flawless. Next, the filled molds pass through a rapid cooling tunnel, usually maintained at 5 to 10 degrees Celsius. This step allows the chocolate to harden quickly while preserving its shine and the signature snap sound when broken, a hallmark of well-tempered chocolate. Interestingly, as chocolate cools, it contracts ever so slightly. This tiny shrinkage is what allows it to release cleanly from the mold without any force. In fact, some expert chocolatiers say they can hear a faint click when a perfectly tempered piece separates from the mold, a small but deeply satisfying sign that the process has gone just right. The chocolate is then transferred directly to an automated packaging line. At large-scale factories like Ferrero, production output can exceed 300,000 pieces per hour. Packaging is designed not only to protect the product, but also to reflect brand identity. From Toblerone's iconic foil wrap to the artisanal paper boxes used by Laderac or M&Ms. And just like that, a finished chocolate bar is born, ready to hit the shelves or melt in your mouth. So back to the original question, why does chocolate contain lead and cadmium? Cadmium seeps from the soil, especially in cacao growing regions of South America. And lead? It mostly comes from dust and vehicle emissions during outdoor drying. If the husk isn't properly removed, heavy metals can end up in the final chocolate bar. That's why chocolate requires an extremely strict control process. Now comes yogurt, the so-called national healthy food. But does every cup actually contain the live probiotics it claims? Or is it just milk, sugar, and flavoring disguised as probiotic? It's time to take a second look at what you think is healthy. Let's uncover the truth behind this seemingly harmless product. No one knows exactly who made yogurt first, but it was almost certainly an accident. Over 7,000 years ago in Central Asia, people stored milk in animal skin bags to preserve it. The high temperature, combined with natural bacteria in the hide, caused the milk to ferment, resulting in a thick, slightly sour, creamy substance. At first, they might have thought the milk had spoiled, but later realized it was safe to eat, and even soothing for the stomach. From there, yogurt spread throughout the Middle East, Asia, and Europe. The Turks called it yoğurt, Indians used it in lassi, and the Greeks developed it into the thick, smooth, low-moisture yogurt we know today. In the industrial era, probiotics were lab-grown, packaged, and sold as symbols of wellness. But real benefits require precision. Probiotics are fragile and must survive 5 key steps to reach your gut. 2. The yogurt production process. Step 1. Pasteurization. The process begins at the farm, where fresh milk is collected and rapidly cooled to preserve its freshness. The milk is then transported in refrigerated tankers to the factory. Here, the milk can be used directly or supplemented with milk powder, typically whole milk powder. Adding milk powder increases the protein and solid content, which makes the final yogurt thicker, smoother, and less prone to whey separation. It also enhances.
Booking.com has all kinds of stays. Because what's right for some
Is that a mirror?
might not be right for others. Find exactly what you're booking for. Booking.com, booking.yeah.
Enhances the creaminess and flavor of the product. Next comes the pasteurization step. The milk is heated to 85 to 90 degrees Celsius for 30 minutes, or 95 degrees Celsius for 10 minutes. The goal is to completely eliminate harmful bacteria and deactivate enzymes that could spoil the milk or interfere with the fermentation process later on. You can think of pasteurization as a thorough cleanup using heat. It ensures a sterile environment so that probiotics can grow effectively after being added in the next steps. After pasteurization, the milk is quickly cooled to around 42 to 45 degrees Celsius, the ideal range for lactic acid bacteria to develop. If the milk is still too hot, the probiotics will die as soon as they're added. If it's too cold, they'll go dormant and won't ferment. Probiotics are only added when the temperature is warm enough for them to survive, but not hot enough to kill them. At this point, cultures are added. Usually two main strains, Lactobacillus bulgaricus, Streptococcus thermophilus. These two probiotic strains are scientifically proven to balance gut microbiota and support digestion and immunity. Some premium yogurts also include Lactobacillus acidophilus or bifidobacterium, commonly used in probiotic products. However, the number and types of probiotics depend on the manufacturer. Not every yogurt is rich in probiotics. After inoculation, the yogurt is incubated at 42 degrees Celsius for 4 to 8 hours. During this time, the bacteria consume lactose and produce lactic acid, which causes the milk to thicken and develop a mildly sour taste. This is the golden phase. At this stage, the probiotic density can reach 10 to the power of 8 to 10 to the power of 9 CFU per gram. Once the desired acidity and texture are achieved, the yogurt is rapidly cooled to 4 to 6 degrees Celsius to prevent further bacterial growth. From here, the bacteria no longer multiply, but they remain alive and dormant until you eat them. However, over time, the number of live probiotics gradually decreases, especially if the yogurt is stored too long, kept improperly, or reheated, such as in cooking. Once completed, the yogurt will be automatically dispensed into individual jars or bottles for packaging. So does yogurt always contain live probiotics? Not necessarily. If it's properly fermented, refrigerated, and still within a short shelf life, the live bacteria are still abundant. But if it's sterilized drinking yogurt or long expired, most probiotics are already dead. Some so-called fake yogurts don't even go through natural fermentation. Just because it's yogurt doesn't mean it has probiotics. To actually benefit your health, choose naturally fermented yogurt with a short shelf life, kept cold, and not heat-treated after fermentation. If you eat it just because people say it's good, you might just be eating sour-tasting dessert cream. You thought chocolate was the only thing to worry about. Turns out even yogurt carries risks. But now let's turn to a snack that everyone knows isn't healthy. Yet we still eat it, still enjoy it, and still hand it to kids every day. Lollipops. They're simple, sugary, and look harmless. But the journey of a lollipop is far from sweet. And to understand that, we have to go back to the beginning, when lollipops didn't even have sticks. Before lollipops existed, humans had already been cooking sugar into hard candy for thousands of years. In ancient Persia, China, or Egypt, people would boil down concentrated honey and eat it by hand, or with wooden sticks to avoid getting sticky. But something resembling the modern lollipop only appeared in the early 20th century. In 1908, an American named George Smith claimed to be the first to put hard candy on a wooden stick and named it lollipop, after a racehorse he liked. However, there's also evidence that handmade candy factories in Europe had been attaching candy to sticks years earlier to make packaging easier and prevent kids' hands from getting sticky. Although the origin remains debated, one thing is certain. The invention of the lollipop marked a turning point in the candy industry, when sugar was no longer just for eating, but for entertainment in the mouth. So, how is a lollipop made? The process begins with the delivery of refined sugar and corn syrup, the two main ingredients in lollipops. There, it's dissolved in hot water at around 82 degrees Celsius, forming a liquid sugar solution. This process can take up to 9 hours to ensure the sugar is fully dissolved. The sugar solution is then mixed with corn syrup at a ratio of 55% sugar to 45% corn syrup. The sugar-corn syrup mixture is sent to a pre-cooking system, where the temperature is raised to around 109 degrees Celsius.
Imagine being able to build anything just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44, a complete AI creation platform.
Through steam-heated coils. Next, the mixture moves to a vacuum cooker, where it's heated to about 143 degrees Celsius for approximately 4 minutes. At this point, the mixture becomes thick, sticky, and extremely hot, almost like molten asphalt. Once cooked, the candy mixture is slightly cooled and moved to the stage where color and flavor are added. Coloring and flavoring, either natural or artificial, are mixed into the batch along with acids like citric acid or malic acid to balance the sweetness and add a slight tartness. This is when the candy becomes visually fun and tastes great, but also when parents start to worry. Some colorings and flavorings, when overused, have been linked to hyperactivity in children. Once the hot candy mixture reaches the right consistency, it's poured onto a cooling table and kneaded, either by hand or machine, to evenly distribute colors, flavors, and remove excess air. After kneading, the candy is passed through a rolling machine to create long ropes of consistent diameter. These ropes are then fed through sizing rollers to ensure uniform thickness. Next, a forming machine cuts the ropes into segments, shapes them into balls or flat discs, and inserts either paper or plastic sticks. Modern machines can produce about 1,000 lollipops per minute, ensuring high efficiency and consistent shapes. Finally, the lollipops are transferred to an automatic packaging machine. Each one is individually wrapped in cellophane or wax paper, twisted or heat sealed to keep it fresh and hygienic. Then, they are counted, sorted, and packed into boxes or plastic bags, depending on the product type and order. Some advanced machines can even group lollipops by flavor or shape before final packing. Outrow. Major brands like Hershey's, Chobani, Mars, Dannon, Hostess all follow extremely strict quality control systems. There's no denying, they've helped raise an entire generation of Americans. But behind layers of advertising, improved formulas, and labels like healthy, have you ever eaten something familiar and thought, Wait, is this really what I think it is? What about you? Ever had a surprising experience with these brands? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to Captain Discovery to keep exploring what lies beneath the surface of everyday products. See you in the next video.
Build a website you love with Wix, where your words
And that's it. Oh, that video was interesting. I learned a lot of things from that video. Anyways, yes. Let me know in the comments what video you want me to react to next. Anyways, that's it. Bye.